Welcome to COWL Fans, the casual fans' home for Overwatch League news. We're coming at you from our respective homes in the Tampa Bay area. I'm Aluramore,
I'm Howleir.
and I've been doing that intro since we started this last year.
Yeah.
It's I'm not great at writing intros and stuff, but one thing I do miss is being in the studio and being able to say we're coming at you from a studio.
Yeah,
I feel it.
I miss the studio in general.
Yeah, it felt nice just to be hanging with my buddy.
It did.
Yeah.
Felt good to be on a camera.
Yep.
Be a little bit different than every other esports podcast. That's just a bunch of little boxes in a graphic.
Yeah. And now here we are. Boxes and a graphic.
Yeah.
Help! I'm stuck. We can do one of those funny sideshow shorts where we walk through each other's boxes.
I don't know if we have the comedic timing
I don't.
that the Legend sideshow has.
I don't know. I know I don't. So we're gonna jump into this here. I guess it's gonna be fun. We're gonna have a good time. We got plenty to talk about. We've got a Florida game. We've got
Yeah.
a bunch of games happened this week. We went for 3 days this
ton.
week
Oh my god.
versus our typical
Yeah.
2.
Here on out, it's just Overwatch, baby.
Yeah, it feels honestly unnecessarily intense. Like I feel like we could have had some teams doubling up weeks the past few mini tournament cycles.
Yeah, it feels like they kind of realize, wait, like, oh crap, guys.
Yeah,
Like, if we want to kind of be done at a normal time, we really gotta kick up the games.
yeah, and I'm
And
not a
like, it's like they had the idea of we need to make up the Asian matches because the Asian matches didn't happen for a while,
right.
right? And then at some point they went back and tallied everything, which was apparently just very recently, and then went, oh crap, we've actually fallen behind Asia.
I don't know.
Oops.
It's 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 odd. It just doesn't feel good at all. And
But it is exciting. I mean, it is creating a scenario where if you can have a late season peak, you can jut yourself up pretty significantly in the standings for a lot of these teams. So,
you
like a
can.
team like Toronto Defiant in a Genji meta,
Mm,
this is their chance. Where if they had been playing equal games throughout the year, maybe that wouldn't have happened. So
sure.
there's some storylines to be had, but yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, and we'll talk about those more towards the end when we talk about the actual playoffs outline, which has
Mm-hmm.
become available this past week. So there's just lots of exciting things going on. And we're going to kick it off, as we always do, with our local Florida team bringing home a W against Atlanta.
Yeah, and this was a big W in the context of the greater weekend.
Yeah?
Um, because the day before, Atlanta Reign played the LA Valiant. LA and the Atlanta Reign came out with what you saw against Florida if you watched the match. If you didn't get to watch matches this weekend, Genji's still in the meta. And otherwise, everything's in flux. The only thing that's like certain right now is there is a Genji on a team, on every team. But
Yep.
that's it. Some teams are playing full dive. Some teams are playing pseudo dive with like you have Winston and Genji as like your dive duo, but then you also have like Sigma and Ash. Um, or it's Diva and Tracer just for that full dive setup. Some teams are playing a double shield setup with Ryan and Sigma. There's a lot happening, and it's unclear right now what the best strategy is. But in that LA Atlanta match, Atlanta played full dive basically. Tracer Winston, and then Diva. Sometimes they would play Ball Diva, Ball Sigma. A lot happened. Um, but they really also like to play the Zenyatta. They would play Dogman on Zen and Masa on usually Brig. So that was pretty unique, I think, in the grand scheme of the weekend. You didn't see many teams just go that hard on the Zen.
Right.
Usually it'd be Zen Bap. I think was more common. Although you did see some Zen Mercy. It's weird. It was a weird weekend, man. It was one of the weirder weekends. Like we've had a lot of hero pools, but this one felt like some of the least defined of any of the hero pools that we've had so far this year. Very weird. And then on the other side, the LA Valiant played what the Florida Mayhem would end up playing. So they played the half dive, Winston and Sigma, with Ash.
Is that what we're
Genji.
calling it? Half dive?
I'm calling it pseudo dive or half dive, yeah, because it's a Winston and a Sigma. What do you call that? It's so weird.
I guess I would call that a half dive. I don't know.
Yeah, half dive, pseudo dive. And then their supports, they actually played Zen sometimes. They would put Lasher on Zen and then Rain on Baptiste. And then other times Lasher was on Brig and Rain was on Baptiste. So you saw a little bit of a mixture there. But yeah, they go into this match and Atlanta just destroys them. And as a Florida fan, you're a bit worried. So you're watching that, and you're like, okay, they just destroyed KSP playing Ash by playing Tracer. And I'm like, okay, I wasn't super impressed with Erster. I wasn't as impressed as I was expecting to be. So I feel good about Yaki in this Genji matchup with Erster.
Right.
But I'm concerned about BQB after a couple weeks of BQB kind of getting destroyed by Tracers. And knowing that we can't just switch Yaki to Tracer and try to match it. Like he's gonna have to play the Genji and BQB is gonna have to show up. And BQB played the Ash and he showed up.
He really did, didn't he?
Yeah, he did fantastic. Edison was getting nothing done on the Tracer. Nothing. There was one match where like he didn't get a kill like the whole time, or at least like I think the entirety of their defense. He didn't get a single kill. It wasn't until they went on attack. It's crazy.
It was very convincing from the Mayhem, for sure.
Yeah,
and they did a good.
And the LA Valiant just ran our comp, right? And
right.
They got destroyed by the Atlanta Reign, who historically can't beat good teams. And then Florida comes out and basically return trounces them. I think if we didn't go to Route 66, it would have been a clean 3-0. Outside control. Stupid mode.
Do you dislike control maps? You've never said that on this show before.
Just sometimes I just try to get new information out. You know? Keep it fresh.
Yeah, as fresh as you can. All in all, this is really great for Florida. This bodes well for us coming into this final mini tournament of the season. This is just all good.
Yeah, and I mean, it kind of validates what I was saying after the summer showdown, that Florida isn't necessarily a bad team, and we beat ourselves more than we got beat by the Houston Outlaws there.
Absolutely.
We misread the meta. We decided we weren't going to play Genji, and it came back and bit us hard.
Absolutely.
In hindsight, and now we come out and we play the Genji, and suddenly we're looking like a top tier team again.
Yep.
Or at least that upper echelon, the upper 5 of North America. So, which is a good place to be going into this end of the year.
Absolutely agree. Super excited to see what happens with Florida going forward towards the end and the postseason. We're going to move on to the battle for Texas, which, as is tradition, is a close game no matter how the two Texas teams are doing.
It's just got to go to map 5, man.
It has to.
It shouldn't. This game had no business going to a map 5, and then it did. Like, Outlaw should have closed this out 3-0. Route 66 should have been the end of it. But then, like, the Houston Outlaws on the cusp of victory said, "Wait a minute, what map is this? Are we playing Route 60? We can't play Route 66, guys." And we just what? And then they just lost it. And when they should have won it by all accords. Like they were dominating, and then they just let Dallas Fuel hang into this series by the skin of their teeth.
Oh man.
And then Dallas Fuels just kind of start running away from it. I don't know if Houston's boomed, Dallas figured them out. I don't know what happened.
Something happened. Something happened right there.
It's
That's
like
the
I
moment.
go back and try to think about this match, and it just doesn't. It's hard to pinpoint how we got to that how we got to that place, because you sub out Decay on Route 66 and bring in Onigod. So I want to say it's like, oh well, Onigod showed up. It was a difference of having like long range hit scan instead of playing the dive. But again, Route 66 should have been the Houston Outlaws. So
Yep.
I don't know.
Nobody knows.
It was the battle for Texas. It ended in an epic C9. Just one of the worst.
You hate to see it.
I think there was a C9 at the start too. I think Dallas threw the first map with a C9, and then Houston just threw the whole series to end it with a C9. It was a battle for Texas. It was a classic battle for Texas, and probably the most exciting match of the weekend, at least in North America.
Yeah.
Because I didn't get to watch the Asian matches this weekend. Apparently, New York versus Chengdu, worth going back to view. I woke up that morning and my Twitter feed was exploding over it. Apparently, Ameng was countering a Sombra with Wrecking Ball. So
who knew?
Maybe worth going back if you sometimes go back throughout the week and watch some matches. Maybe New York versus Chengdu. Otherwise, I would recommend outside the booming of Boston. I would recommend this Texas match.
Well, the booming of Boston is exactly what we need to talk about next, because Boston got decimated, and not kind of decimated. They got toyed with.
They got broken.
Oh my gosh. So the San Francisco Shock decided that they did not care about Boston in any way at all. Not Boston's players, not Boston's coaching staff, not Boston's management, not Boston's feelings. They didn't care about anything about Boston. And they said, you know what would be awesome to do against Boston? Let's put Super on the Gengu.
Oh my gosh. Yep.
And it was the trolliest troll pick I've ever seen. And
nothing like it.
And then they destroyed them.
It wasn't even close. It was, oh my gosh.
Like, if to the point where if we don't see Boston, I think you're too close to the end of the season right now. Don't do anything right now, Boston. That would be dumber than what you're already doing. But
they had so much hope, man. This team, they bring in Punk. They upset the LA Gladiators.
Like, I know.
Boston was feeling so good about themselves. Like they finally had hope, and any flame of hope that was in
it's
them
gone now.
Died this weekend after being destroyed by Super's Genji, and then just how the next game played out. Who did they even play? Boston played Valiant yesterday, and they end up. It's like, okay, Valiant looked a bit weaker. They got 3-0'd by the Atlanta Reign, who just got trounced by Florida, right? So Atlanta's looking like a mid-tier team, which what does that say about Valiant? And now they're going up against Boston. Here's their chance. Boston full holds on Hanamura A. And you're like, all right, here we go, Boston. Here we go. You're going to take a map.
Yeah.
And then the Fuller hold.
The Fuller hold.
The Fuller hold comes out, and just that's it. That's it for Boston, man. They all take to Twitter. Punk's not happy. Fusions isn't happy. Fusions can be seen saying, "He got me." Fusion says over Super's Genji, "That Super boomed me." Super added, "He's so good," repeating it 4 times. Or, excuse me, Fusions. Fusions then said he added Super to the list of players he wants to work out with after COVID is over.
Oh my gosh, it's so true though. It's
But like
ridiculous.
they were it was sad reading my Twitter feed after that. Like that was a team destroyed. I don't know
Listen,
how
there's
you bounce back from that.
there's plenty of talent on the Boston team. There's plenty of talent around there, but for whatever reason, that talent together with the coaching staff that they have now is not working. It hasn't really been working all season. They started to have a resurgence, and then they got decimated by a Super Genji.
Yeah.
So, and while a Super Genji sounds like an impressively powerful Genji, it's not. So, with that being the case, I think Boston's best decision is just roll out the rest of the season. At the end of the season, redo it. Redo the whole thing. Stop trying to build around any of the players or coaching staff you have. Go find someone
But then
new.
this is the Boston Uprising. Like this is a team that historically has not really been willing to invest
They don't.
in their roster. So like
But
I
can
don't
we be
know.
honest with ourselves about the fact that the Vancouver Titans, who just hired a team out of contenders, is doing better than them though?
Yeah.
Like
That's true.
that's not going to cost you. You can buy an entire team from contenders. You can put them all on contracts, and you can do it all for minimum salary rates, and they will be happy to do it.
That's true.
The minimum salary rates are good. They'll get you and the benefits that the teams have to offer people. You'll have a bunch of people who are able to finally make a living playing Overwatch the way that they want to, and they will grow as players because of it, and Boston will grow as a team because of it. Honestly, this is a win-win.
Yeah, I mean they should be able to do it. It's not like mixed Western players are as sought after either. So like you should be able to probably pick up a mixture of Third Impact and like Team Doge
Sure.
players, and then that should make a mid-table team.
I mean, even if it's a low-table team, it's not going to be a getting boomed by Super's Genji team.
I mean, hopefully, but
well, it shouldn't.
Then again,
be.
I mean the competition in the Overwatch League and like the standard of play like is consistently growing. Like I think especially this Washington Justice roster we have now. If you put that team back in like 2018, I think they do a lot better too.
Sure.
And yeah, the Vancouver Titans have looked better, but like in the context of okay, maybe they can beat Justice and Boston, and like maybe some of your weaker lower end.
I mean, they had a good they had a good run against Toronto too.
But they are struggling now that like the double hit scan meta is over and we're in a Genji meta. Vancouver Titans might be back to the worst team in the league. Like Boston might be able to beat them now. Not that they apparently get to play them. Looking ahead at Boston's schedule. Like Boston has to hope they can beat like Dallas or something, maybe. But I don't know. It just might be GG's.
It just might be GG's. Anyways, let's move on from GG's to next week's matches. Oh wait, more GG's.
More GG's.
More GG's. Matches next week do not offer a lot of promise.
Nope.
You know, this tells me that we're finally establishing really the strength of the different teams in the league. We've been kind of going through this season, and COVID happened, and we had to play online, and anybody could really beat anybody on any given day, and it just doesn't feel like that anymore. It finally feels like, the good teams are good, and the bad teams are bad, and the teams in the middle are the teams in the middle, and there's a pretty defined hierarchy of who's winning and who's going to lose most of the time.
Most of the time. I think there's like a few teams that like between each other, it hasn't really been decided. Like your bottom 3 teams.
Yeah.
We've seen the LA Valiant start to fall now that they're out of a double hit scan meta. And you're just seeing the weakness of KSF that had me so low on this team early in the year. And you're seeing that to come back to bite them. So there is still a little bit of shakeups, like, but you are starting to like feel the establishment of teams that are good across metas. Like I feel like Florida, Paris are starting to define themselves in that upper echelon with like Shock and Fusion that have probably been there all year, right?
Right.
The lower tier starting to feel pretty established. The mid tier, and now it's just a matter of where do you fall within these tiers, and that's gonna play, I think, an important part leading up to the actual playoffs. Because a lot of those teams that are pretty close in how they feel in the power rankings, as you said wisely, very very early on in the season, just look at the standings to get a sense of where the good teams are. Well, these teams that feel like they're about the same are actually pretty close in the standings.
Yeah. It's really just working out like that, and it's not a bad thing. It's actually kind of interesting that it took so long for it to establish. The season's almost over.
Yeah.
And we're only just now really figuring out. Right? We're only just now really figuring out who's the better and worse teams.
Yep.
Which is pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Probably the game with the most promise next week, though, because we probably should pick one and go, hey, look, this game has the most likeliness to be good, is, fortunately for us, Florida's game. One of Florida's 2 games, actually. Mm-hmm. It's the Florida Mayhem versus the San Francisco Shock.
The Washington Justice. Oh, sorry, the San Francisco Shock. That makes more sense.
Doesn't it? So, the last time Florida went up against the Shock was in the finals for the May Melee, which came out pretty close. It didn't come out super close, but it came out pretty close.
Yeah, I thought it was really close.
Yeah.
I mean, we probably should have gone to map 7 if they didn't have a absolutely ridiculous Lijiang Tower.
Yep.
Like that was the difference of just them pulling that map out of where they never should have been able to do it. That map was insane.
Yeah.
So really close overall. Yeah.
Yeah. So this should be a really good kind of rematch moment, and honestly, a really good, if Florida wins, it should be a really good mental health moment also.
Yeah, and this is going to be an interesting one because it's the San Francisco Shock. So you can never really feel like you could discount the San Francisco Shock.
No.
But remember, this is a team that didn't feel good about their Genji going into the Summer Showdown and just kind of got upset early on. By I think it was Paris, which granted Paris goes on to win the whole thing.
Right.
But still, like the Shock, it wasn't really close in that matchup.
Mm-hmm.
And then they come out against Boston with Super. And was this really just kind of like a joke or fan service because they felt that confident that they could beat Boston? Or do they legitimately believe that Super is their best choice of Genji?
Oh, no. I hadn't even thought about that as a possibility.
Although Super did well. Like, he didn't feed, right?
Sure.
He did what he needed to do. Going up against a Genji like Yaki, I'm not sure where Super actually, like, if this is really going to work out against the Mayhem. Granted, he's surrounded by fantastic pieces. Something that got mentioned, I believe, on the broadcast is that Super's been diving with Choi Hyobin for a long time. Like, he knows how the dive structure works amongst the tanks in the San Francisco Shock. So, yeah, he could coordinate his dashes well with a monkey jump.
Listen, we're just not going to talk about that anymore because that was definitely a troll pick. And if San Francisco Shock are resorting to Super as their main Genji,
was it a troll pick?
What on earth?
Because they were were talking about this, and they were saying we have no idea who our Genji player is. We traded our Genji player to the Hangzhou Sparks, and we don't know what to do about it.
I can't.
And he says Super has been saying that his Genji is good, and we should play him as Genji. And apparently, it just worked out in scrims, is what they're like. I think it was a troll pick, but was it? Do they have a Genji player?
I refuse.
Like, it should be Rascal, but why didn't they play Rascal in the first place? They said it wasn't going well, and that's why they went with this Tracer. So, I mean, what are they going to do about that? And then they've been carrying so hard on this Tracer. We just beat Atlanta Reign on that Tracer. What if the meta shakes up that Florida had the right read and full dive wasn't the choice? Now what do you do as... Because you've been being carried by this Tracer for a bit. You've just been having Striker just fool on some kids. And if BQB can shut you down just like he did Edison, granted I think Striker is a better Tracer than Edison, but honestly not by much. Edison's a bit cracked. So the pieces are all better. Like, I think San Francisco Shock is a better team than the Atlanta Reign, probably even just doing what they just did last week. But is it enough to beat Florida? I don't know, man. I have a lot of questions.
Yeah, ask them somewhere else. I don't like that.
But, and that could be worrying for Florida if that wasn't what San Francisco Shock does and they come out with a Rascal Genji. We've never seen the Rascal Genji.
No, it has yet to be seen in the Overwatch League.
So,
I think at all, hasn't it? No, it's been seen
maybe
a couple times.
Like the Dallas. I think we saw it on Dallas Fuel in the day. They played dive with Effect and Rascal.
Yeah. So.
Like on one Route 66, and then just destroyed the enemy team, and then never played it again, and went back to losing.
Yep, that sounds about right. Okay.
And so it could be, I don't know. It's weird to call San Francisco Shock a trap game, but it kind of feels like a trap game to me.
Oh, man.
I don't know. I have no idea what to expect in this game. It should be good. It's two good teams, but honestly, it could go a stomp in either way, and I wouldn't be shocked. Or it goes to map 5, and I wouldn't be shocked. Anything could happen.
I hate it. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Also, Florida should just beat Washington. Okay, moving on to the playoffs. That's literally all I wrote down for Washington. Florida should win.
Yeah. I mean, they got 3-0 by the Toronto Defiance.
Yeah, the end.
Yep.
Okay, cool. The playoffs format is finally online. And
it's fully online.
Yep. It is fully on. That's true. It's fully online. And I'm going to mention... No, I'm going to have you sort of go over how the format looks.
Okay.
Because you're good at that. And then I'm going to tell you why it's stupid, because that's my job.
Okay. Interesting. All right. So the playoffs are going to start off with regional playoffs. So you're going to have the teams competing in North America and Asia to ultimately send 2 teams from each region to a final 4-team playoffs leading into the grand finals. All right. So starting with North America. How it's going to work is there's going to be 5 teams that right off the bat will qualify for the proper 8-team double elimination playoff bracket. And then there's going to be a play-in, and then even before that, a play-in qualifier. So you have your top 5 teams make the playoff bracket outright. 4 teams will go right into the play-in, and then you'll have the bottom 4 teams will compete in the qualifiers to get to the play-in matches, to get to the playoffs.
Right.
So it's a bit confusing, especially if you try to interpret the bracket on the website, but I think that's the easiest way to try to digest it. And for the play-ins, it's just winner moves on. you have your matchup with wherever you get matched up with in the play-in qualifiers. If you win that match, you get into the play-ins. And then if you win that match in the play-ins, you're in playoffs.
Yep.
So pretty straightforward. They are keeping the, instead of like being ranked by your seeding, especially in the playoffs in the past,
right,
seeding determined where you started.
Right.
It will be the higher seed picks their opponent.
Okay.
So Florida Mayhem does have an opportunity to go ahead and throw their first game by picking the worst matchup possible.
Yes,
for them.
excellent.
I look forward to it greatly. And then over in Asia, it's basically the same thing, just on a smaller scale. So only the top 2 teams make the playoffs, and it'll be a 4-team playoff double elimination bracket. So kind of similar to what the final bracket will look like. And then you'll have 3 teams make the play-ins outright, and then the bottom 2 teams will compete in a qualifier to get into one of the play-in matches. And same thing, win that, you're in playoffs.
Right. Okay. Good explanation. That was pretty it. Yeah. So, all in all, I like the format. It feels not terribly dissimilar to the format of the past. You have your play-ins, you have your playoffs, you have lots of teams that have a potential to make it in. But I have one. But the fact that part of this is just because of the way things are right now. I know. Right, but I'm a future thinker, so I wanna be thinking about how this impacts us going forward in the league for next year, when there hopefully is not a giant pandemic preventing us from having all the Overwatch that we really want.
Right.
The fact of the matter is, having every single team qualify, because that's basically what's happening, right? Every single team is getting a shot at the grand finals. And I feel like that really rendered a lot of those bonus wins that teams like Florida were able to pull out from these tournaments irrelevant. Florida did a really great job in that May Melee. They're looking like they're going to do a pretty solid job here in the Countdown Cup. Their Summer Showdown was less great, but still. And they're going to have earned these bonus wins as a team that wasn't stacked into the top, basically, right? Because we didn't start off super hot. We started off kind of rocky, and that's okay. I'm okay with that. And I feel like they probably put us right in the middle of probably high end of play-ins or low end of playoffs by default is probably where we'll wind up. Not sure for certain. But something like that. What?
I want to talk a lot about Florida standings. I won't get into it.
Okay,
now.
Perfect. Perfect. That's where I imagine they're going to be. I haven't checked the standings in a little bit. But so with that going on, I feel like all that extra work, these extra tournaments that you've won, these extra wins that you've gotten to add to your team, and then a team that Boston could hire a totally new team or something like that, which I know isn't really going to happen, but just for argument.
I think there's also a deadline on signing players that
might
have passed.
Yeah, there is, but I'm just...
Maybe the end of this month?
I just thrown out some ridiculous scenario.
Too much to keep track of.
Right. So, but, Boston could suddenly get their crap together, or could theoretically...
Or we could end up in like maybe a realistic scenario is we could end up in an echo meta in like going into the actual finals,
right?
And then or going into like the postseason, and then suddenly Vancouver Titans can go on a run, right?
Right.
Now, for some people, there's the argument to be made that that's exciting, and you're getting to see that playoffs are supposed to be the best teams in the league, and this allows you to have the best teams in the league be in the playoffs. But it also just kind of negates having a regular season, which, again, some people might argue is a good thing. But if you're going to have it, like, I feel like like I kind of like it, especially with like COVID and everything. Like you said, like it makes sense why you might want to give every team a shot because this year has been kind of weird. But I feel like you could have just got rid of the play-in qualifiers and been okay.
I think
Like if you
so.
got rid of the play-in qualifiers, the teams that would affect are Vancouver, Washington, and Boston in North America, and Chengdu in Asia. And you just feel like that just kind of feels right.
That doesn't feel like a
Like
big deal.
those teams probably didn't deserve to be in the postseason.
Yeah, and
you reap what you sow sometimes, and they sowed doo doo.
yep. So
didn't plant any seeds in it.
Mm-hmm.
Just to feel the poop.
Man. So that's just a really frustrating thing for me. It feels like why even bother giving these extra wins out for these tournaments? Why bother with any regular season standings whatsoever? If everybody's just going to qualify at the end. It feels very irrelevant. It feels like you really
yeah. But also, it does feel really nice to be able to, like, if you're a top seed in the play-ins, you get to pick your opponent. You win that match, you're in playoffs. Like, that feels much better than being at the mercy of the teams above you and having to win 2 matches. Like, that does feel better. And just being right into the playoffs and knowing you have that double elimination bracket and you don't have to do any single, like, knockout matches.
Right.
That feels really good, too.
Oh yeah, so, I do like the single win play-ins. I'm cool with that. I like the double elimination. That's how we did last year's playoffs. I thought that was very good. I'm excited about having double elimination again.
Think about it. If there weren't double elims last year, San Francisco Shock would have been out first round.
Yeah. No, thank you.
You would have had a New York Excelsior versus Vancouver Titans final,
mm-hmm.
which would have been the first game that wasn't a stump because that one went to map 7.
It's true.
Yeah, we also would have had that.
So, just lots of really great things that are. There's lots of things that are very good about this. Just this one thing just really feels demeaning towards the rest of what we've worked for throughout the season. So.
Yeah. It'll be exciting though. Lots of Overwatch, and then and there's like a double. It's crazy. It's like a double triple playoff. There's a lot of Overwatch to be had. But I wanna talk about Florida now. Can I talk about Florida now?
Okay, fine.
Florida is in a beautiful position.
That makes me happy.
Honestly, so Florida right now in North America, because there's no standings right now for, like, if you go to the Overwatch League website, the standings page is done as if every team is in the same region, and it's
is it really
playoffs? Yeah,
I gotta click on that.
I haven't checked it super recently, but I believe it's still there. It was last time I looked at it. So you don't really get a good sense of where they're at. Like the play-in cutoffs and the everything don't mean anything right now. That are in their standings. So to give you a sense of where we're at right now, the teams that are set to qualify straight off in the North American playoffs are Philly, San Francisco, Paris, Florida, and the LA Valiant. So those are the teams in order who are supposed to make it in. And then the play-in teams, Atlanta, Los Angeles Gladiators, Toronto, and Dallas. Play-ins, Houston, Vancouver, Washington, and Boston. Interesting to note, before this weekend, Houston was 2 slots higher. They were the 8th seed, set to make play-ins right off. After this weekend, Toronto and Dallas passed them.
Oh my gosh.
There's a bit of flux to be had.
Sure.
Particularly between, I think Houston, Dallas, and Toronto are going to continue to compete over the next few weeks to try to make play-ins outright and not be one of those play-in qualifier teams.
Mm-hmm.
But then you're going to see Valiant, Atlanta, and Gladiators competing for that last playoff spot. And that's what I kind of want to focus on from a Florida fan's perspective. Because, Aaron, it feels like we're going to make playoffs outright. It feels like we're going to have Florida Mayhem postseason.
I'm looking at it, and you're right. That's what it looks like.
Not play-ins, playoffs, straight up. So we're in 4th. With 12 wins, 5 losses. That is a 7-game differential in wins and losses, right?
Mm-hmm.
I did math good? Good.
Good.
Now, LA Valiant are the team right below us at 9-8.
Which is a one-game differential.
We have 7 games left in the season. So basically, we would have to lose all our games, and LA Valiant would have to win all their games to pass us.
No, incorrect.
I mean, there is the Countdown Cup.
Right. Well, not even that, because if it's based on win versus loss differential, which I think is what's going on here. I don't think it's just wins outright. It's win versus loss differential here. That means that if we lose all 7 games, Valiant just have to win 4 out of their 7 games.
Still, but it still feels like a scenario like Mayhem basically have to just collapse and just completely poop the bed for the rest of the season.
Not to mention our actual map differential, which is +12 versus Valiant's -1.
The only team that's close to us is Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really big that we beat Atlanta this week and are kind of keeping them down in the standings. So they're the only people who can threaten us. But again, they really have to start going on a run, and we really have to start going downhill.
Yeah.
And our schedule ahead isn't that difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Our hardest game should be the San Francisco Shock, which to be expected. After that, we've got Washington. We have a game against another crap team too. I'm trying to remember. I looked ahead at the schedule.
I'm pulling it up. Give me a second.
And then we had 2 games against the LA Gladiators, who, I mean, Gladiators can be scary, but they're pretty mediocre. And then we have a game against the Valiant, which, again, can be scary, but also can be mediocre depending on the meta. So I feel like we should be in a good spot. Like, we should be able to get those 2 wins, and those 2 wins should be enough to basically just secure our slot.
I can't see the other weeks. They won't load.
Don't click on 27 because that's the Summer Showdown. Click on 28, and then you'll be able to see it.
There it is. We'll play the Titans.
So we have Vancouver and Washington
Valiant.
as our freebie matches. And then it's just Valiant, and then it's like all the LA teams a bunch.
Yeah.
And a San Francisco Shock game. Like, the only thing like we'd have to be worried about is a team like Valiant, Atlanta, or who's the other one in that conversation? Gladiators gets their crap together, goes on a run, and like makes it to the finals or even wins the Countdown Cup. Like, that's the biggest threat to our position.
Right.
But it's like such a crazy scenario. If we could just go even or just be all right, we should be making the playoffs straight up. Catching Paris is probably going to be more difficult. It's a possibility for us, I think.
Yeah.
Like those sorts of things. And that's what's crazy. Like, looking at Paris, like that feels difficult to me. They're 14-6, we're 12-5. And that feels difficult. Basically a 2, maybe 3 game deficit, right?
Right.
That feels difficult. LA Valiant would have to make up a huge deficit, or any of the other teams would have to make up a much larger deficit. And like, as a Florida fan, I want to make that feel like it's a bit more reasonable sometimes in my heart. Like, I can never trust Florida that much, but I think a 2-game deficit for Florida is going to be hard to make up against Paris. Like, how much harder is it going to be for these other teams below us to make up that? So it
feels really
like
good.
A Florida Mayhem in the double Elam playoffs, baby.
That's
top 4 team.
Yeah.
Gets to select who we get to play. Like, this, it's feeling like reality just looking at the standings, especially after beating Atlanta this weekend. It is looking comfy. And if we can make like semifinals in the Countdown Cup, it's almost in the bag at that point.
Yeah. I think it would be at that point. Yeah. So that's very exciting. Lots and lots of strong feelings for Florida, honestly. It just feels great.
It's exciting. We've never been good. We were the last team in the league last year. And the year before that, we were just better than the Shanghai Dragons. That's been our our biggest claim to fame before this year was better than the Shanghai Dragons. That's the best thing you could ever say about the Florida Mayhem. And not Shanghai Dragons top of the standings this year.
No.
0-40
Shanghai Dragons.
That's all you can say.
Bonkers.
So
it's bonkers.
What a world. What a world.
What a wonderful world. Okay. Copyright infringement. Nuts. Cool.
And you sounded so much like him too, so
I know.
It's definitely gonna be flagged.
It's definitely gonna get flagged. Oh man. It feels good. It's a good day to be a Florida Mayhem fan.
Yeah.
And you know what? Thank you, Mayhem. Thank you. We love you in our hearts.
We do. We could be Boston right now. We could be the Washington Justice. We were right there with Washington last year.
We were.
We were right there. But we said, let's go all Korean so our best players don't leave for Valorant. Big brain.
Oh my gosh. We're not talking about that. We're not talking about that. Oh man.
You don't want to talk about Baby Bay retiring?
I don't. Not really. Everybody's leaving for Valorant. They're going to stay there or they're going to come back.
All the Western players, yeah.
I don't know.
Not just mentioned he might come back. He one of the reasons he left is because he knows Overwatch would be waiting for him if it didn't work out. Read that in an interview.
That's weird.
Yeah.
Oh man. So lots and lots of exciting things going on. We're almost there. It's gonna be fun.
Just not next weekend.
Just not next weekend. Next weekend is except for the shot game.
Except for God, that would be such a big win too, beating the Shock.
Man.
For Florida. Oh man.
Lights out, game over. That's it right there.
2-0 weekend would be huge for us, honestly.
Yeah. All right. So everybody, when you're done watching this, just go back to your respective living rooms and just bask in the glory of Florida's potential for winning here, okay?
Maybe just take a cold shower, relax a bit, calm down.
Don't take a cold shower. Those things are awful. Why do people do that? I hate that. It's the worst. All right, so that is it. That's all we have on our schedule, and we're going to stop, therefore.
Oh.
Yeah. That's how it works, right? When we're done, we done.
Is therefore like Surefour's brother?
Oh my gosh.
I assume he needs to be stopped.
All right, so thanks for joining us this week. We really appreciate you watching. We appreciate all of your support. Hey, make sure to go check out our actual YouTube channel, since we're not on the Popped Off channel anymore. Give us a like, a share, a subscribe.
You're probably already here.
You're on the Facebook, because we do live on the Facebook. You know, trying to reach some more people, so we're going to give it to you on Facebook too. So if you've got people who you want to get into it who don't use the cool new Instagrams, send them over our way. What?
So you've always been on Instagram.
I mean,
how's that account doing?
I did. I'm bad at Instagram. I'm bad at social media. If anybody really wants to social media a family-friendly Overwatch League show, feel free to send me a DM. Man. So, thanks so much for joining us. Please support us. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us and like us on the Facebook and the Twitter, where we actually do things. And we would love to interact with you and hang out and stuff. Yeah. You just in the background. You sound so soft. Awesome. I'm Aluramore.
I'm Howleir.
And you've been tuned into COWL fans. We'll see you next week.